Hello students, our today's topic will be the Russian Revolution, Chapter 2. So firstly, let's answer what was the Russian Revolution. In short, we can say that there were two revolutions that led to the demise or the downfall of this Tsarist regime in Russia and eventually establishment of this USSR, the country that lasted in 1991. Tsarist or Tsar means it was the name of the king of Russia, and this revolution, its time period is from February to October 1917. Ole Russia ram hianin revolution hi voini lion lo machanani he revolution a hian lo rel na pai thai in USSR Union Soviet Socialist Republic an din ani chuan he revolution hian February to October 1917 thleng kha a o ani Tsarist omzia chu Russian ram lal soina ani. So let us begin with the causes, and before that we need to know the backgrounds of this Russian society and Russia in general towards the end of this 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. So at the turn of the 20th century, Russia was largely an agrarian country, and the peasants or the farmers were very much impoverished, and they paid high taxes. So this was the reason why the farmers were not happy and with the king, and this considered, and that leads to the revolt. Ole Russian Revolution thlen chan kan zir hma in Russian ram din hmun kha kan hriat phot angai ani mo 19th century top lam le 20th century tran tir lai vel khan thaw hma an zo na sa em ani mo ma se lo nei tu te din hmun chu an hiam hle thunga an re thei em a chia tax a chawi thei a piang kha an chawi ani ber ani. So lo nei tu te lung oi lo khanin revolution hi a thlen pha ani. And next is the dominance of aristocrats and clergy in the government, and all the posts in the military government were reserved for the aristocrats, noble families, and also the clergy did not have to pay any taxes, and the clergy had a very powerful hold over the king and the Tsar. Okay? Ole million le koshan rongbol tu te pui thiam bisop kan ti te khanin sarkar ro relna an opbet ani million le nge mi om thei kan ti te khang ho khanin chia an ol thunga chuan koshan rongbol tu te hianin thil ti theina power an nga em bok ani. And next, let's see the industrial development in Russia. The industrial development in Russia was very minimal by the time of 1910, and the factories numbering in Russia were hardly around 1,000, but still all these factories were concentrated in the cities of St. Petersburg, which was the capital at the time, and Moscow, the large two cities. And all these workers lives in overcrowded apartments, and their conditions were very poor. There were weights lying everywhere, and such there was discontent among the factory worker as well. Ole 1910 chau lai bor vel ani chu Russian ram kha industry thil siam na kha an la nei tlem ve em ani mo an nei chun po an khopuya khanin a om deuh veka industry a thok tu te workers ho kha chep em a an oma anomna a drop box sia an din mun kha a hre omin an re thei em ani. And next, let's see the ideas of Enlightenment in Russia. The ideas of Enlightenment had reached Russia like democracy, the rights of people or individual, and accountable government that had already begun in Western Europe. Countries like France and England had their own revolutions, they had their own government. But in Russia, it was totally absolute monarchy. The king were Romanov dynasty and they were called Tsar. Sometimes it is written as CZAR, okay? And Tsar, TZAR pon and Soichina, CZAR pon. So this word is derived from this Caesar, okay? So Romanov were the ruling dynasty in the 17th century and they were absolute monarch. And you must remember this absolute monarch means that they did not have anything in control over them, okay? Like the king of this England, there was a government in England which could keep a check upon the power of the king or the owner. But here, the words of the king, the Tsar, no one could challenge him. And it is says that the king were appointed by God. So the Tsar, say that I derived the power from God. Ole, Russian ram to Enlightenment sa kohar chwa na alo thleng ta ni mo ramdang anga democracy mipui than ro rel na rights of people le sarkar ngyal nget tak nei andu ta ni chuan lal ro rel na pai thla kha an tum ta ni chuan in 17th century bor vel khan Russian ram ro rel tu chu Romanov lal chung kwa ten ro an rel ani kha mo. So in 1894, a new king, Tsar Nicholas II, ascended the throne so his policies led the revolutions in 1917 and he was the Tsar during the revolution, okay? And he was influenced by this Rasputin. Rasputin was a mystic and it is says that he heavily influenced the Tsar as well as the Tsarina Nicholas Anupui. Okay, and it is also said that he had an illegal affairs with the Tsarina, and this information spread to public, and it caused widespread anger against this monarch. Okay, now let's talk about these people, namely these Vladimir Lenins and these Karl Marx. They lead the revolts, and this Karl Marx is the man who gave the philosophies of this communism. He says that the workers or this proletariat are the people who are in majority, and this should rule Russia, and all the resources should be in their hands, he says, okay? And this Vladimir Lenin changed his philosophy a little bit, and he says that if the workers had to take power in their own hand, it will take a lot of time. So there must be some form of government or some form of system in which there is a direct dictatorship of the workers. So this is what Lenin's philosophy, okay. And next we talk about this Russian Socialist Democratic Party, which is known as the RSDP. It was formed in 1898 and it followed the philosophy of this Karl Marx, and Lenin was a member of this party and the founding member. And he also added to the philosophy of this Marx, but as I told you, he modified a little bit, so it was called this letter as Marxist Leninist, okay? Okay. 1894 khan lalthar Nicholas II an rawarela mase aram opdan du lo na wangin 1917 khanin revolution hi chuak ta ni mo 1917 Bolshevik revolution kan ti kha chuan he revolution an shwai tu ber chu Vladimir Lenin le Karl Marx ni chuan 1898 khanin Socialist Democratic Party din ania he party hianin Karl Marx philosophy thurin kha anzui ani. And now we will talk about this Russo-Japanese War 1904 to 05. This Russo-Japanese War was due to dominance over Manchuria and Korea. These are the two areas in the north of China, and this dominance over this area lead to war. Okay, Japan wanted to control, and this Japan already had its control over this Korea, and Russia had its control over this Manchuria. But Japan wanted to control both, and Russia also wanted to control both this area. So finally war started, and at last Russia was badly defeated in the war. Ole 1904 to 1905 Russia le Japan indo chan chu Japan hian Korea a control a Russia hian Manchuria a control thunga Japan hian hemi area hi control ve adu ani chu mo chuan Russia pon control ve an du ve tin ani chu chuan anin kar lo khia anin do chhota ni atopa chuan Japan in hna an changta ani chuan Russian ram kha khati hun lai khan zar lalro rel na hnuaia anoma zoin an tla tial ani ole khati zong kha voina kan explain thei ani thank you all.